The boy hadn't spoken in 4 years, not to doctors who offered candy, not to therapists who showed him puppets, not even to his mother when she cried herself to sleep, wondering if she'd ever hear his voice again. But tonight, in a Los Angeles hospital room at 2:14 a.m., 5-year-old Eli opened his eyes. He looked past the woman who raised him, past the nurses frozen in the doorway, and stared directly at the most dangerous man in California. Then he asked 4 words that would end a man's life before sunrise. "Who hurt you, Mommy?" If you've ever protected someone by staying silent, this story is about to show you what happens when that silence finally breaks. Subscribe now. You won't be able to stop watching. The first sound wasn't the gunshot Ji-hoon Park had ordered an hour ago. It was the flatline monitor screaming down the hallway of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Nurses scrambled, security lights flickered. Somewhere, a child screamed. But Ji-hoon stood perfectly still outside the pediatric ward. Blood stained his cuffs, his knuckles were raw, and his chest felt like someone had cracked it open with a hammer. Because behind that glass window sat a boy he didn't know existed until 6 hours ago. His son. A son who hadn't spoken a single word in 4 years. Ji-hoon built his empire on silence. He controlled ports from Koreatown to Seattle. He made men disappear without a whisper. Politicians feared his calls. Police looked the other way. But this silence? This terrified him. He pushed through the door. Nia didn't turn around. She sat beside the bed, fingers wrapped around her son's small hand, shoulders tight as wire. She knew his footsteps. That was the problem. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. Ji-hoon stopped 3 feet behind her. "You took my son and vanished. I think I have the right. You were supposed to let us go." "I didn't know there was an us to let go." Silence pressed in, thick, dangerous. The monitors beeped like a countdown. Eli lay curled on the bed, small fists clenched against his chest. His eyes were shut tight, but his body trembled like he was fighting something in his dreams. Then it happened. The monitor spiked. Eli's eyes flew open. Not panicked, not confused. Clear. He looked past his mother, past the machines, straight at Ji-hoon. And for the first time in 4 years, the boy spoke. Not loud, not scared, just 4 words, calm as glass. "Who hurt you, Mommy?" The room collapsed into silence. Nia's breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. Ji-hoon felt his blood turn to ice. Because his son didn't ask who hurt him, he asked who hurt her. Someone had touched Nia. Someone had terrorized her badly enough that a 3-year-old boy stopped speaking to protect her. Ji-hoon turned slowly. "Nia, what is he talking about?" Her face went pale. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Then Eli spoke again. This time he pointed at the hallway. "The man with the ring. He comes to our house." Ji-hoon followed the boy's finger. Through the glass, standing in the corridor like a loyal soldier waiting for orders, was Dae-jung, his most trusted lieutenant for 15 years, wearing the silver ring Ji-hoon gave him as a symbol of brotherhood. And for the first time in his life, Ji-hoon Park didn't know who his enemy was. The enemy was never outside. He was standing in the hallway the whole time. If that satisfies you, subscribe, because the betrayal is just beginning. Ji-hoon's mind raced, but his face stayed stone. He couldn't let Dae-jung see, not yet, not until he understood what his son just revealed. He stepped into the hallway, calm, controlled. "Secure the perimeter," he told Dae-jung. "No one in or out until I say." "Of course, Chairman." Dae-jung bowed his head slightly, but his eyes drifted past Ji-hoon, through the glass, to Nia. They lingered too long. Ji-hoon caught it, filed it away. "Go, now." Dae-jung disappeared down the corridor. Inside the room, Nia's hand tightened around Eli's blanket. She'd seen that look. She'd seen it 100 times over 5 years, in parking lots and grocery stores, in the shadows outside her apartment window. The look of a predator who never stopped hunting. Jihoon closed the door, locked it. Explain. Now. Naya could lie. She could grab Eli and run again. She'd done it before. But running hadn't saved her brother. Running hadn't given Eli his voice back. Running had only delayed the nightmare. So she made a different choice. She decided to fight. I didn't leave because of you, Jihoon. Her voice was steady. I left because of him. For 5 years, Naya Carter Gray lived like a ghost. A small apartment outside Inglewood, night shifts at a medical billing company, no photos online, no social media, cash payments whenever possible. She checked her rearview mirror 17 times on every drive home. She watched the parking lot from her window before leaving for work. Eli slept with a nightlight, not because he feared the dark, but because he needed to see if someone opened the door. And every single night, Naya lay awake wondering if tomorrow would be the day Dae-jung finally found them. He came to me 3 weeks before I disappeared, Naya said. Told me you'd never love me the way he could. Said he'd been watching me since the night we met. Jihoon's jaw tightened. You ran because of words? No. Naya's voice cracked. I ran because when I rejected him, he wrapped his hands around my throat and told me exactly what he'd do to Eli if I ever told you. Silence. The kind that comes before destruction. Jihoon's voice dropped low. Dangerous. He touched you. It wasn't a question. Naya met his eyes. That's not the worst part. What could be worse? What he did to my brother. Jihoon frowned. Your brother died in an accident 5 years ago. I sent flowers. Naya shook her head slowly. Marcus didn't die in an accident, Jihoon. He was murdered. Her voice broke on the last word. And Dae-jung made it look like his car went off that bridge. The room felt smaller. The walls pressed in. Jihoon had trusted Dae-jung with shipments worth millions, with secrets that could bury governments, with his own life. And the whole time, the man had been hunting his family. Jihoon's mind pulled up the memory like a file from a locked drawer. Marcus Carter, Naya's older brother. Tall, protective, the kind of man who shook your hand too hard and looked you dead in the eye while doing it. They'd met once at a dinner Naya arranged 6 months into their relationship. Marcus spent the whole evening watching Jihoon like he was waiting for him to slip up. He never liked me, Jihoon said quietly. He never trusted powerful men. Naya's voice was hollow. Turns out he was right. He died 6 months before you vanished. He died because he found out what Dae-jung was doing to me. Naya remembered the day like a scar that never healed. She was 7 months pregnant. Eli kicked inside her as she sat in Marcus's kitchen, sleeves rolled up, bruises dark against her brown skin. Marcus stared at her arm. His jaw clenched so tight she heard his teeth grind. I'm going to Jihoon tonight. No. Naya grabbed his wrist. Dae-jung showed me photos of our apartment. He knows where I sleep, where the nursery is. He said if anyone finds out, he'll make sure I watch my baby die first. Marcus pulled away, paced the room like a caged animal. Then I'll handle it myself. Marcus, please. You're my little sister, Naya. You think I'm going to sit here while some psychopath puts his hands on you? 3 days later, Marcus's car went off a bridge on the Pacific Coast Highway. The police called it an accident. Wet roads, sharp curve, no witnesses. But Naya knew the truth, because the night before he died, Marcus sent her a text. If something happens to me, it was him. Don't let him near Jihoon. Don't let him near the baby. Jihoon exhaled slowly. You never showed me this. Would you have believed me? A woman you'd known for 2 years, or a man who'd killed for you since you were 23? Silence. Heavy as concrete. Because she wasn't wrong, and they both knew it. Why didn't you disappear completely? You could have gone anywhere, changed your name, left the country. Naya pulled out her phone, opened a folder, handed it to him. Files. voice recordings, screenshots, photos with timestamps, a 5-year timeline of every moment Dae-jung appeared near her apartment, her job, Eli's school. I never stopped fighting. I just fought silently. I was building a case. I was going to destroy him myself without needing anyone to believe me. Ji-hoon scrolled through the evidence. His expression didn't change, but his grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. Then the hospital lights flickered. An alarm blared. Security breach. East Wing. Ji-hoon's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. She talks too much, just like her brother. Naya's face drained of color. He was here, inside the hospital, and he'd been listening. Her brother died trying to protect her. Now, his killer is hunting her again, inside a hospital, with her son in the bed beside her. If you understand the weight of that fear, subscribe. This story is about to explode. Ji-hoon moved fast. He grabbed a burner phone from his jacket and dialed a number only 3 people in the world had. Get a team to Cedar-Sinai, East Wing, service elevator. His voice was ice. Take the woman and the boy to the Malibu house. Tell no one, especially not Dae-jung. He hung up before questions could be asked. Naya stood, pulling Eli against her chest. Where are you going? To find out how long the man I trusted has been hunting my family. Ji-hoon! Get Eli out. I'll find you. He didn't wait for her response. He was already walking toward the chapel at the end of the corridor, because that's where Dae-jung always went when he needed to think. Quiet places for quiet monsters. Ji-hoon brought Naya to a private dinner at his penthouse in downtown LA. Business associates, expensive wine, conversations that meant nothing. But Dae-jung noticed only one thing: the way Naya laughed, full, unguarded, like she didn't know she was surrounded by wolves. She said something to Ji-hoon, something small, forgettable, and he smiled back at her. A real smile, the kind Dae-jung had never seen on the chairman's face. Something shifted inside Dae-jung that night. Not love. Love doesn't calculate. Love doesn't plan. This was ownership, the need to possess what someone else had. He started small, checking on Naya when Ji-hoon traveled, bringing her coffee she didn't ask for, standing too close when they spoke, compliments that felt heavy. Ji-hoon's lucky. Most men never find someone like you. You deserve someone who's around more. If you ever need anything, I'm always here. Naya smiled politely, kept her distance, pretended not to notice. But Dae-jung noticed her noticing, and that made him want her more. 8 months before Eli was born, Naya was alone at Ji-hoon's estate. He was in Seattle handling a shipment. Dae-jung showed up unannounced. Chairman asked me to check on you. Naya didn't believe him, but she let him in because refusing would have caused questions. He followed her to the kitchen, stood too close while she poured water, his breath on her neck. He doesn't appreciate you, Dae-jung whispered. He doesn't see what I see. Naya stepped back. You should leave. He grabbed her wrist, squeezed until she gasped. One day you'll understand. His voice was calm, almost tender. One day you'll choose me, and you'll wonder why you waited so long. He let go, walked out, left her shaking in the kitchen with fingerprint bruises forming on her skin. She never told Ji-hoon, because Dae-jung made sure she understood. If you tell him, I'll make sure he never believes you, and then I'll make sure you regret speaking. Ji-hoon found him kneeling in the front pew, head bowed, hands clasped. You always did like quiet places, Ji-hoon said. Dae-jung looked up, calm. Chairman, is the boy all right? Ji-hoon Maistrip came front. My son spoke tonight. Dae-jung's fingers stopped moving, just for half a second. Then he smiled. That's wonderful news. He described the man who hurt his mother. Ji-hoon stepped closer. Silver ring. Visits their apartment. Silence. Then Dae-jung laughed softly. He stood, brushed off his knees. I wondered how long it would take. No denial, no shock, just a smile that made Ji-hoon's blood run cold. She was never supposed to be yours, Chairman. I saw her first. I wanted her first. You just moved faster. Ji-hoon's fists tightened. You're a dead man. Dae-jung tilted his head. Maybe, but here's what you don't know. I'm not the only one who's been watching her. He glanced toward the chapel doors, and those men outside, they're not yours anymore. Naya ran. Eli clung to her neck, face buried in her shoulder, as two of Ji-hoon's men flanked them down the corridor toward the service elevator. Keep moving, one muttered. Chairman's orders. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. The steel box hummed as it began to descend. Then it stopped. Between floors. No warning. Naya's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked at the two men. Their phones had buzzed at the same time. Now they were exchanging glances. The taller one cocketed his phone. His posture shifted. Change of plans. Naya recognized that shift. She'd seen it before, in Dae-jung's eyes the first time he grabbed her wrist. The moment a man decides a woman is no longer a person, just a problem to handle. She didn't wait for them to move first. Her elbow slammed into the emergency stop. Red lights flooded the elevator. Alarm screamed. She pressed Eli into the corner and stepped in front of him. Close your eyes, baby. Her voice was steady. Mommy's going to handle this. 5 years of fear had taught her one thing. Hope was not a strategy. So she prepared. The blade slid from her sleeve. Small, sharp. Always there. The first man lunged. She slashed his forearm before he could grab her. He screamed, stumbling backward, blood spraying across the elevator wall. The second man hesitated. That hesitation cost him everything. The doors wrenched open from outside. A hand reached in, grabbed the man by his collar, and dragged him into the hallway. Ji-hoon. He was bleeding from a gash above his eye. His knuckles were split open. His shirt was torn. But he was standing. He finished the second man with 2 strikes. Fast, brutal, efficient. The body dropped. Naya watched. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of his violence. She was grateful for it. Eli peeked from behind his mother. His eyes were wide, but dry. He looked at Ji-hoon, bloody, breathing hard, dangerous, and he said 2 words Ji-hoon never expected. You came. Ji-hoon dropped to one knee. His voice cracked. I'll always come. Naya's grip on the blade loosened. Ji-hoon's eyes met hers. She was still holding a weapon. He was still covered in blood. Neither apologized for who they were. Can you trust me long enough to get out of here? He asked. Naya swallowed hard. I never stopped trusting you. I stopped trusting myself around you. They moved fast, down the stairwell, through the basement, into the underground lot. Ji-hoon's car was surrounded. 6 of Dae-jung's men, armed, waiting. No way out. Then headlights cut through the darkness. A black sedan pulled up beside them. The window rolled down. An older woman sat in the driver's seat. Sharp eyes, silver hair pinned perfectly, expensive coat. Ji-hoon froze. Mother? The woman didn't blink. Get in. All of you. How did you... Now, Ji-hoon. Her voice left no room for argument. We need to talk about the man who's been lying to this family for 15 years. Ji-hoon helped Naya and Eli into the back seat. He climbed in front. As the car sped away, his mother glanced in the rearview mirror at Naya, at the boy. So, she said quietly, you're the woman my son almost destroyed himself over? Naya met her gaze. And you're the woman who knew the truth and said nothing. The car fell silent. She thought she was running with her son. Instead, she was fighting for him. If you've ever had to protect someone when no one else would, you understand Naya. Subscribe. The secrets are about to pile up. The safe house sat hidden in the hills above Malibu. Old Korean architecture, wooden beams, paper screens, a garden that had been tended for decades. No one knew about this place. Not Ji-hoon's associates, not his enemies. Only family. Eli fell asleep the moment his head touched the pillow. First peaceful rest in days. Naya sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall, wondering if peace was something her son would ever truly know. In the main room, Ji-hoon faced his mother. You knew. She poured tea. Her hands didn't shake. I suspected. That's not the same thing. Naya appeared in the doorway. The older woman looked up, studied Naya for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes. Not warmth, but recognition. Respect, maybe. No, it isn't. After Naya vanished, Daejung changed. Jihoon didn't notice. He was too busy drowning in work, burying his heartbreak beneath shipments and negotiations and blood. But his mother noticed. Daejung asked too many questions. Where might Naya have gone? Did anyone have family elsewhere? Had anyone heard from her? Questions a loyal lieutenant had no reason to ask. Then she caught him in the nursery, the room Jihoon had built for a son he never got to hold. Pale blue walls, a crib still wrapped in plastic, stuffed animals waiting for hands that never came. Daejung stood in the middle of it, alone, staring at the empty crib like it belonged to him. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. He turned slowly, smiled. "Just mourning what the chairman lost." She didn't believe him, but she had no proof. So she stayed silent. "I told your father before he died," his mother said. "I told him something was wrong with Daejung, that his obsession with Naya was not normal." Jihoon's voice was ice. "And?" She set down her teacup. "He said Daejung was too valuable to lose over suspicion. He said the empire came first. Always." The words hung in the air like poison. Jihoon turned to face her fully. "Father knew, and he did nothing?" "Your father built this organization on men like Daejung, loyal, ruthless, efficient. He wasn't going to tear it down over a woman and a baby." Naya stepped forward. Her voice shook with controlled fury. "So my son and I were expendable?" His mother met her gaze without flinching. "To my husband, yes." She looked at Jihoon. "To my son, that's the question, isn't it?" He walked to the window. The city glittered below like scattered diamonds. His father built half of what he could see. Blood money, silent deals, sacrifices no one talked about. For years, Jihoon told himself he was different. Now he wasn't sure. He turned. "My father was wrong." His mother's eyes widened, just slightly. "And you should have told me." His voice cracked. "The moment you suspected, you should have told me." Then he looked at Nia. "And I should have made you feel safe enough to tell me yourself." His mother reached into her bag, pulled out a folder. "There's something else you need to know." Inside, bank statements, wire transfers, names of men Jihoon thought were loyal to him. Daejung didn't just want Nia. He wanted your seat, your empire, everything. Jihoon scanned the documents. His jaw tightened. He's been siphoning funds for 3 years, building alliances, preparing a coup. His mother's voice was steady. "He wasn't just going to take the woman you loved, Jihoon. He was going to take your throne, and he's been planning it since before you ever met her." Nia's stomach dropped. She wasn't just a victim of obsession. She was a pawn in a war she never knew existed. "Where is he now?" Jihoon demanded. She sent a message an hour ago. "He wants to meet, alone." She handed him her phone. One message glowed on the screen. "Bring Nia, or I release everything, including what really happened to her brother." Nia found Jihoon on the balcony. The city sprawled below them, millions of lights, millions of lives, none of them knowing that a war was about to begin in the hills above. He stood with his hands gripping the railing, knuckles white, shoulders tight. "You're going to meet him," Nia said. "I have to." "Then you need to know everything first." Jihoon turned. His eyes were dark, guarded. But beneath that, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Fear. Not for himself, for her. "Tell me." Nia took a breath. The words had lived inside her for 5 years. Heavy, poisonous, rotting. Tonight, she let them out. "The night Marcus died, Daejung came to my apartment." Jihoon's jaw tightened. "Eli was supposed to be asleep. I thought he was safe in his room." Her voice trembled. "Daejung showed me a video, my brother's last moments. Marcus was begging." She closed her eyes. The memory cut fresh every time. "He begged for my life, for Eli's, and Daejung recorded it. He made me watch my brother die, and then he told me that if I ever spoke, that would be me. That would be my son." Ji-hoon's hands dropped from the railing. His chest rose and fell like he was fighting to breathe. He grabbed my throat that night, Nia continued, squeezed until I saw stars, and he whispered in my ear, "If you ever tell anyone, especially that boy, I'll make you watch him die first." Silence pressed in, the kind that suffocates. Then Ji-hoon asked the question that shattered her. Did Eli see? Nia's tears fell before she could stop them. "I thought he was asleep. I thought he didn't hear," her voice cracked. "But he was in the hallway, watching through a crack in the door. He saw everything, Ji-hoon. He saw that monster's hands on my throat. He saw me cry without making a sound." She wiped her face. That was the night he stopped speaking. Ji-hoon's control cracked. Not rage, something deeper. Grief that had no outlet. He was 3 years old. And she protected me the only way she knew how. Nia's voice broke. She stayed silent for 2 years. A baby carried that secret to keep me alive. Ji-hoon reached for her, stopped. His hand hovered in the air like he didn't know if he had the right to touch her anymore. "I should have been there." Nia closed the distance, took his hand, pressed it against her cheek. First voluntary touch between them in 5 years. "You're here now." Her eyes met his. "Don't meet him for me. Don't meet him for revenge. Meet him because Eli deserves to speak without fear for the rest of his life." A small voice came from the doorway. "Mommy?" They turned. Eli stood there in his pajamas, eyes wide, but steady. He'd been listening. The boy walked forward, not to Nia, to Ji-hoon. He looked up at the man he barely knew, the father who terrified the world but knelt before a 5-year-old like he was the one seeking permission. "I remember everything," Eli said. "I can tell them what he did." Ji-hoon's throat tightened. "You don't have to." "Mommy was silent to protect me." Eli's small hand reached out and touched Ji-hoon's face. "Now I speak to protect her." The room went still. Nia's hand flew to her mouth. Fresh tears spilled. Ji-hoon pulled his son into his arms, held him like the world might try to take him again. "He's 5 years old," Nia whispered. "We can't use him as a witness." Ji-hoon looked up. His eyes had changed. No grief now, only certainty. "We won't have to, because Dae-jung is never going to see a courtroom." A 3-year-old watched his mother's abuser and stayed silent for 2 years to protect her. Now, at 5, he's ready to fight. If that doesn't break your heart and build it back stronger, I don't know what will. Subscribe. The warehouse sat at the edge of the Los Angeles docks. Rust, salt air, the smell of diesel and old blood. This was where Ji-hoon's father built the empire, where deals were sealed and handshakes and broken promises ended in shallow graves. Dae-jung chose this place on purpose. Poetic, symbolic, a message. This is where your father made me. This is where I'll unmake you. Ji-hoon walked through the main entrance, alone, unarmed, just like Dae-jung demanded. 6 men waited inside, armed, positioned around the room like chess pieces, and in the center stood Dae-jung. He smiled when he saw Ji-hoon. "You actually came. I thought you'd send soldiers." "For you?" Ji-hoon stopped 10 feet away. "No, this I handle personally." Dae-jung laughed, slow, confident. "Still playing the honorable chairman, your father would be proud." "My father is dead." "And yet you walk just like him, talk just like him, bleed just like him. Tilt in your head. You think you're different? You built the same empire on the same blood. You just tell yourself prettier lies." Ji-hoon's expression didn't change. "My father would have killed Nia to protect the organization." Dae-jung's smile widened. "Yes, he would have. I'm burning the organization to protect her." The smile faltered, just slightly. "You want to know the truth, Chairman?" Dae-jung stepped closer. "I loved her before you ever saw her." Ji-hoon said nothing. "That charity gala in Atlanta 7 years ago, I pointed her out. I told you she was beautiful." His voice turned bitter. "And you walked right up and took her, like you take everything." "She was never yours to take." "Neither was she yours." Dae-jung's eyes darkened. "But I waited, I watched, I planned, and when she finally rejected me, when she chose you over everything I offered, I made sure she'd never forget the cost of that choice. You terrorized her. You murdered her brother. You traumatized my son. And I'd do it all again. Daejung spread his arms wide. So what now, Chairman? You going to kill me yourself? Get your hands dirty for once? Jihoon smiled, cold, certain. You made one mistake. Daejung's eyes narrowed. What mistake? You thought I came alone. The warehouse lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. When they flickered back on, Daejung's 6 men were on the ground, unconscious, disarmed, and standing in the shadows, a dozen figures, faces Daejung recognized. His men, the ones he'd spent 3 years turning against Jihoon. They weren't his anymore. You spent 3 years buying their loyalty, Jihoon said quietly. I spent 3 days reminding them who signs the bigger check. Daejung's confidence cracked. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Jihoon walked closer. Each step echoed like a verdict. You touched her. You terrorized my son. You killed her brother. Daejung backed up, hit the wall. And I told you I'd do it again. I know, Jihoon stopped inches from his face. That's why this isn't mercy. He pulled out his phone, dialed. Bring her. The warehouse door opened. Nia walked in. Daejung's face changed. Real fear now, the kind he'd spent years putting into others. No, he whispered. No, this wasn't... You wanted her to watch, Jihoon stepped aside. Now she gets to watch, but not what you planned. Nia stopped in front of Daejung. Her eyes held no tears, no trembling, only steel. Hello, Daejung. Her voice was calm. I've been waiting 5 years for this moment. 5 years of running. 5 years of silence. 5 years of checking locks, watching shadows, teaching her son to fear the sound of footsteps. And now the monster was on his knees. Nia stood over Daejung. Her heart pounded. Her hands were steady. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times. In her darkest nights, she'd pictured his blood on her hands, his screams in her ears, his life draining away while she watched without blinking. But standing here now, she felt something different. Not rage, not fear, power. Nia, his voice cracked, desperate now. You know I loved you. Everything I did, it was because I couldn't stand watching him have you. I would have given you the world. Nia crouched down, eye level. You don't know what love is. Her voice was quiet, certain. Love doesn't terrorize. Love doesn't threaten children. Love doesn't murder. She tilted her head. You didn't love me, Daejung. You wanted to own me. And when you couldn't, you tried to destroy me. His jaw tightened. The mask slipped back. The real Daejung, cold, calculating, stared back at her. So kill me then. Get your revenge. Jihoon stepped forward. This is your justice, not mine. Tell me what you want. Nia stood, looked at the man who'd stolen her brother, who'd silenced her son, who turned her life into a prison without walls. She could ask for his death. 1 word and Jihoon would end him. No trial, no questions, just silence. She thought of Marcus, his smile, his protection, the way he called her baby sis even when she was grown. She thought of Eli. 2 years without words, nightmares that made him scream without sound. She thought of every night she triple-checked the locks, every morning she scanned the parking lot, every moment she wondered if today was the day he'd find them. Then she made her choice. I don't want him dead. Daejung's eyes flickered. Hope. Nia crushed it. I want him to live with what he's lost. His power, his reputation, his freedom. Her voice hardened. Every single day for the rest of his life, I want him to wake up in a cell and know that a woman he called weak and a child he thought was silent destroyed everything he built. She turned to Jihoon. Give him to the feds. The evidence I gathered is enough for 3 life sentences.
Daejong laughed, bitter, broken. You think the feds will take me? I have insurance, names, dates, politicians, cops. The moment I talk, half of Los Angeles burns with me. Nia smiled. First real smile in years. I know. I have those files too. Daejong's confidence cracked. The arrogance, the control, gone. He was smarter than you ever knew, Nia said softly, and so was I. The warehouse doors opened. Federal agents flooded in, men Nia had contacted through channels Daejong never knew existed. Quiet calls, careful planning, 5 years of preparation for exactly this moment. They dragged him to his feet, cuffed his wrists. Daejong stared at Nia as they pulled him away. This isn't over. Yes, she said calmly. It is. The warehouse fell silent. Ji-hoon stood beside her, close, but not touching. You could have asked me to kill him. I know. Why didn't you? Nia looked at him. Because Eli is watching, not tonight, but always, and I want him to know that justice doesn't require becoming the monster. She paused. It requires outsmarting him. Ji-hoon studied her face. Something shifted in his eyes. Respect. Admiration. Love. Let's go home, he said quietly. They returned to the safe house as dawn painted the sky gold. Eli stood at the door, waiting. The moment he saw them, he ran. Not to Nia, to Ji-hoon. Small arms wrapped around his father's legs, a face pressed against his knee. First time Eli had ever chosen him. Ji-hoon dropped to his knees, held his son like he might disappear. Nia watched through tears. Her family, broken and healing, together. 1 month later, the house wasn't a mansion. No gates, no guards, no bulletproof windows. Just a simple home with a garden in a quiet neighborhood outside San Diego. White walls, blue shutters, a swing set in the backyard that Ji-hoon built himself. Badly, but Eli loved it anyway. Normal.
For the first time in 5 years, Nia woke up without checking the locks. Eli went to a new school. He talked to other kids. He laughed out loud, a sound Nia thought she'd never hear again. And slowly, carefully, they began to heal. Nia watched through a window as Eli sat with his therapist, a kind woman with gentle eyes and infinite patience. Eli, you didn't speak for a long time. Can you tell me why? The boy thought for a moment. Then his small voice filled the room. Because the bad man said if I talked, he'd hurt Mommy worse, so I stayed quiet to keep her safe. And why did you start speaking again? Eli looked down at his hands, then up. Because Daddy came, and I knew if I told the truth, he would stop the bad man. He paused. So the truth was safe. Nia pressed her hand against the glass. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her baby had carried a burden no child should ever know, and he'd done it to protect her. That night, Eli crawled into bed beside Nia. Mommy, I have one more secret. Her heart stopped. What is it, baby? He snuggled closer. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. The night the bad man came, I prayed. I asked God to send someone to help us. He looked up at her. When Daddy walked into the hospital, I knew God heard me. Nia pulled him close, held him tight, let the tears fall without shame. Her son had prayed for a protector, and Ji-hoon, bloody, dangerous, terrifying, had been the answer. Ji-hoon stood outside the bedroom door. He hadn't meant to listen, but now he couldn't move. The most feared man in California, brought to stillness by a child's faith. His son thought he was an answer to prayer. How do you live up to that? The next morning, Ji-hoon made a call. He stepped back from the violent operations, restructured the organization, put distance between himself and the blood. Not out of the game, but changing the rules. When Nia asked why, he answered simply, My son thinks I'm a miracle. I'm not spending the rest of my life proving him wrong. That night, Nia found him on the porch, staring at the stars. "You're different," she said. "I have to be. For him. For you." She sat beside him, close enough to touch. "I didn't stay for the man you're trying to become, Ji-hoon." Her voice was soft. "I stayed for the man who showed up in that hospital room, covered in blood, terrified, still fighting." "I wasn't terrified." "Liar." He turned to her. Their eyes met. 5 years of distance, 5 years of silence, 5 years of wondering what could have been. He kissed her. Not desperate, not rushed. Deliberate, chosen. A small figure appeared in the doorway. Eli watched his parents together. He didn't interrupt. He just smiled. Then softly, "Good night, Daddy." First time he'd ever called Ji-hoon that. Ji-hoon's voice cracked. "Good night, son." The door closed gently, and for the first time in years, the house felt like home. Eli asked 4 words that changed everything. "Who hurt you, Mommy?" The answer was a man who believed silence made him untouchable. But silence didn't protect him. It protected them. Eli stayed quiet to shield his mother from a monster. Nia stayed quiet to shield her son from violence. And when the time came, when the right person finally arrived, they both spoke. Because that's what truth does. It waits for safety, and then it burns everything that tried to bury it. Ji-hoon didn't save them. They saved themselves. He just made sure no one would ever hurt them again. And if this story taught you anything, let it be this. The people who hurt you rely on your silence. Speaking the truth, even when you're afraid, is how you take your power back. If this story reminded you that silence isn't weakness and speaking the truth is the ultimate act of courage, subscribe to Tales by Wave, because the next story hits even harder. And share this with someone who needs to hear it.